Welcome to Nexus. I'm Wanda Allen Abraha, the Director of the Human Relations Department. We are excited to have the opportunity to bring you today's program. The Human Relations Department enforces and encourages fair treatment and equal rights for the citizens of Winston-Salem. The Human Relations Department has three key areas of responsibility. They are investigating housing discrimination based on race, color, national origin, religion, disability, family status, and gender, mediating landlord-tenant complaints, and conducting cultural diversity education and inclusion training and outreach. This television program is a part of our education and outreach efforts. All Nexus television programs feature community partners. During this episode, we will focus on the Human Relations Student Awards Banquet and our partnership with the Winston-Salem Police Department. Our guests today are Winston-Salem Police Chief Katrina Thompson to discuss partnerships between police and human relations, and Jeffrey Griffin, Commissioner from the Human Relations Commission, to discuss our upcoming banquet. Now let's join Adolfo Briceño of our staff, who will interview today's guests.
Thank you, Wanda, and thank you all for being with us in this another edition of Nexus. And our first guest of the show is Mr. Jeffrey Griffin. Thank you, Jeffrey, for being with us. Jeffrey is head of the Student Relations Committee for the Human Relations Commission here in the city of Winston-Salem, and in his day job is being instructor in the broadcasting program at the Career Center.
Not far from City Hall in
There
Winston-Salem. It's a good place to be.
There you go. Well, thank you for being with us, Jeffrey. Now we're going to be talking briefly, Jeffrey, about the upcoming Human Relations Awards Banquet.
Right.
It's something that we have been doing for over 25 years, I guess. It's a wonderful program that, in general, but I'm not going to say it. Please explain us a little bit. What is this Student Relations Committee?
It's a subcommittee of the Human Relations Commission. I'm a part of the Community Relations Commission, which has several other responsibilities. But for the students, it's an opportunity to reach out to kids, not just at the college level, not just at the high school level, but middle school and elementary ages as well. And we involve them with as many projects as we can. We always open the door. I think it's a great opportunity because kids want to do. And they want to speak, and they want to say something that's meaningful and relevant, and they want to be given an opportunity to act and speak out in a way that says, this is right, this is a good thing that we're doing. And you know, there comes occasion, and I think that becomes an intimate one-on-one setting where even an elementary age kid can see a wrong. Maybe it's a finger pointed, it's a snicker in the hallway, and if we give them the opportunity and you model for them that no, everybody deserves to be heard, everybody deserves to have a seat in the conversation. For me, that is really the impetus of everything that happens from the Student Relations Committee, part of the HRC, is that we're going to wipe away all of the traces of discrimination and celebrate the diversity that's in every school, in every neighborhood, in every community, regardless of age, regardless of financial standing, regardless of any kind of family legacy or faith-based orientation, anything like that. You know, and children, I think, oftentimes more easily than adults acclimate into that. They embrace it, they celebrate, and they run with it. So I think our job is primarily to open up the door and say, okay, here's an idea, here's an opportunity for you, and kids will go and do from that point.
Absolutely. What you were mentioning is a little bit of my next question, Jeffrey, which is the Student Human Relations Awards Banquet.
Right.
Which is precisely, for those who are not familiar with it, this program is children are given an award for whatever accomplishment they did during the past school year.
Right.
And the accomplishments has to do with some social good that they did, right, on their own. So tell us a little bit about what
That's exactly right.
Those accomplishments that you have seen in the Human Relations Award.
You know, it's almost disingenuous to sit from afar or in an office building and tap a kid and go, okay, we like you. You not so much, maybe you a little bit more than the others. So we put that into the hands and hearts of those that are with the children in school each day. The faculty and staff members, guidance counselors, custodians, the cafeteria workers, the teachers, the teacher aides, 75 schools in the Winston-Salem County School. That's middle, elementary, and high school. And what we say is we want to know, we want to celebrate and honor a kid who has spoken out, who has made a stand, who has made an effort to do a good work to help better the community that they're a part of.
Right.
And so we reach out to all those schools, and you hope that there is some conversation. Maybe that happens in the teacher's lounge, maybe it happens at a faculty meeting, maybe it happens over the cafeteria lunch break, or maybe it happens on the playground. You see what that kid did. And maybe there are some kids at a school who say, we're going to have a class-wide canned food drive. Maybe there's another kid who's going to organize, we're going to help collect clothes. Maybe there's another kid that says, we're going to help collect toys or books or fill in the blank. So the big celebration comes to a head every February in Winston-Salem. We'll celebrate at Twin City Corner at the Embassy Suites, the Grand Pavilion Ballroom. On average, and give or take a few, 600 to 700 people
Give or take.
will be there. We'll have a keynote speaker this year. It'll be our new chief of police in Winston-Salem. Will be the
Wonderful.
keynote speaker for this year's event. The students are all invited. Their families are invited. And you know, few families love anything more than coming to celebrate something good. So grandma, grandpa, aunts and uncles, brothers and sisters, you'll get folks
they're
in
all
the
there,
community,
yes.
they will be there. Obviously, staff members, teachers are invited. We'll have several administrators, several members of the leadership team from central office when the Winston-Salem County Schools will be there, school board members as well. And it is a grand celebration. There'll be some entertainment, a brief speech, we'll all break bread together. And then you want to put the kids in the spotlight and let the adults get out of the way. So we'll call a name, they'll come up on stage, and there are photo ops. It is a good thing when a community comes together to celebrate what is right, because so often what you see in the media, what you hear around the water fountain is, oh, we should have done this, we could have done that, we'll try to do better next time. And for this year, it's February 15th, the focus of that entire evening will be, this is what's right, this is what's good. You have made a difference in the lives of the people around you. And I think even for a first grader, can you imagine the power of a 6 or a 7-year-old for the rest of the days of their life to go, wow, I made a difference. You hope that segues and translates into what is the possibility for that child when they're 35 and the world is at their fingertips.
Right.
Then I think greatness will follow.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah, I think that's one of the good things about the program. That possibility that you mentioned.
Right.
That these the celebration of this good social deed that this kid did will translate into their lives permanently.
Permanently.
Not only.
It becomes not a single act, but a way of life.
Right. And you also mentioned some of the things that these kids have done in the past, right?
Right.
Book drives, canned food drives.
There are clothing drives.
Clothing,
Yeah, and it can even be as simple as in the summertime, and school's not typically in session unless it's a special event. If there's a neighbor who maybe needs a box fan, what if there's a senior citizen down the road who needs the mail brought in or the paper brought in from the drive? Can you go walk a neighbor's dog?
Yes. It's not only what they do in school, but
No,
sometimes what they do outside. Of
Outside.
school. Yes.
There's a line that probably should be more blurred than it is, because life, even for a first grader, second grader, and especially not for a youngster in middle school or high school, their life is not confined to those four walls that bind that schoolroom. Life really begins when they go out the school doors. And so, if a child is bitter when they leave school, that's how they'll act.
Right.
If a child celebrates and realizes that here's an opportunity to give, to do, to be heard, to make a difference, to involve, to reach out, then I believe that they will do that when they go outside the school doors as well.
Yes. And then sometimes I have seen students with disabilities that even despite their disability,
Right.
they did something good and they're celebrated. And that's very nice to see.
A leg brace or a wheelchair or a walker does not confine the heart and the mind and the soul.
Very well said, yes.
And those children can do too. And we have all seen that, and it becomes a very emotional thing. And I think part of the burden is that you will sense that grown-ups in the Grand Pavilion Ballroom will go, here's a child who has every reason to give up. Life is hard.
Right.
And look, they are doing to help and support others. If they can do it, well, surely, what can I do?
Yes.
So it becomes, I think, part of testimony to what is possible and part of celebration of the human spirit. So I always say there is a place for everybody at that celebration.
Yes. Please, Jeffrey, remind the public, how do students get selected?
That is
And from where?
That's from all 75 schools, elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, and Winston-Salem County school system. The HRC will reach out to the school administration.
And this includes private schools.
Yes,
correct?
absolutely. Nobody's left out. Nobody's left out. And then there will be some conversation between individual teachers. It might be elective teachers or special teachers such as music, drama, athletics. You want to involve coaches and all that. And that's left up to it's at the discretion of the school leadership. But you certainly hope that teachers will talk. I mean, you say, this is what I saw this kid doing in the hall. Oh, let me tell you what he did in class. Well, what did she do on the playground? And so the school then will make that decision and we'll nominate a child, and that information is then shared with the HRC, and we move forward and reach out and contact that child's family.
Well, thank you very much, Jeffrey, for your
Great
time.
to be here.
Thank you all for being here, and we will be right back with our next guest.
The Transaid fare will actually be going up to $1 for all of our customers, except for those under the Medicaid transportation program, and then those who use our service for adult nutrition and dialysis transportation. And we'll actually have Transaid passes. So we'll have a 30 ride pass, which is $30, and a 10 ride pass, which is $10. So each time the Transaid pass is swiped, it will deduct a ride from the pass.
Hello?
Hello, I'm calling about the apartment you have for rent.
It's not available. This is Shaniqua Johnson. Is the apartment still available? No, it isn't.
Good morning, ma'am. Is the apartment you advertised still available?
Why, yes, it is.
Fair housing law prohibits housing discrimination based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, family status, or disability. If you think you've been discriminated against, call 311 and ask for the Human Relations Department. Fair housing.
Thank you for still being with us. In our second segment of Nexus, we have a very special guest. This is Chief Katrina Thompson. She's the chief of the City of Winston-Salem Police Department. Thank you very much for being with us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
We are going to talk in this segment, Chief Thompson, about the trust talks that the City of Winston, the Police Department and Human Relations Department have developed over the years. What can you tell us about, in general, about this program?
So Trust Talks is a City of Winston-Salem initiative where we use basically a partnership between the Winston-Salem Police Department and the City of Winston-Salem's Human Relations Department. And the whole idea of Trust Talks is to bring different aspects of the community together to have a real open, honest dialogue with police and police personnel about different ideas, different concerns, different misconceptions and perceptions about law enforcement, and basically trying to break down the barrier and build bridges, basically, to develop a strong working relationship.
That's very interesting. For those who have not been in these Trust Talks, Chief Thompson, what kind of stereotypes have you heard, both probably from the public and both from the police officers, because police officers also participate in this conversation?
That's exactly right. So that's a very good question. I appreciate you asking. So it is a learning experience for both the law enforcement officer or police personnel as well as our citizens. And basically we all come with different backgrounds, different experiences, and different exposures, different teachings. And so, growing up, some people are automatically afraid or have distrust for law enforcement. Likewise, some law enforcement officers don't understand why certain segments of the community tend to distrust them when we're really trying to do our jobs. And so what it is we sit down together and we have a clear, open discussion. And when you sit down and you actually understand where a person is coming from and hear them out, you can better know how to help them. You can better understand their actions and their response to you. And again, it's a two-way street. It's not just our citizens learning from our police, but it's also our police learning from our citizens, because in a lot of aspects, we're a product of our community.
That's right. One of the things that I and now I'm remembering of all these sessions that we've had that constantly pops up is the influence of what happens in other parts of the country, and how police officers and probably the public too has to deal with that information. What have you heard in that regard?
And so, you know, we're all very well aware of the different events that have occurred between law enforcement and citizens across the country, specifically African American males dying after having interaction or contact with law enforcement officers in different parts of the country. And unfortunately, a lot of those situations caused a lot of kind of upheaval and in some cases riots across our country, and created very bad times for citizens in those areas, but also created, you know, it didn't help with the distrust that certain members of our community have when it comes to law enforcement. So some of the things that we've heard, you know, we've all been familiar with the whole hands up, don't shoot. And while we have, you know, the United States is such a wonderful country where we can protest and we can, you know, express our displeasure for government, law enforcement, and do so. And that's what makes our country great. We do so, but we must do it peacefully. But in doing so, you know, you have police officers in some cases taking that to mean that citizens don't necessarily trust or believe in police or don't believe that we're there to assist. When in all actuality, that is the case in some cases, that is what citizens believe. But also it means that we have the right to say that we don't like what we see going on across the country between interactions between law enforcement officers and in most cases African American males. And so that's what the protesting is about. But again, until you sit down and you have those open and honest conversations where you're able to say, I don't have anything against you personally, but it's what you stand for, and I need you to help me understand how do I overcome that. But we got to be honest, and you know, I'd like to share this one particular experience that happened in one of our trust talks. We had one citizen in our community who actually lived in an African American community. She was an African American female, and she talked about why police is always in her neighborhood in the mornings patrolling up and down her neighborhood. And she felt as though law enforcement was intentionally targeting and trying to harass her neighborhood. She said, yet I live in the African American community and this is what I see, but I work over near the country club. And I never see police over in the country club stopping people or patrolling up and down the street. Well, during the trust talks, she's explaining this, and one of the officers, and I always say I believe this was really divine intervention. The officer says, well, where do you live? And she explains where she lives, and he says, well, wait a minute, that's my beat. And so he asked her, you know, he says, do you know Mr. Brown? And she said, well, yes. Mr. Brown is my neighbor, he lives 2 doors down. Well, Mr. Brown contacted the police department and said that he's concerned about speeders in the neighborhood, that they're going up and down the street extremely fast, in the mornings in particular, when our children are getting on the school bus, and he's afraid a child is going to get seriously injured or killed as a result of the speeding. Could you increase patrol in the mornings between these hours to keep our children safe? And you can see, as the officer is saying this, the light bulb comes on for her. And again, she had nothing personally against police, but her perception based on that experience was that we were in her community, specifically in her neighborhood, to harass her and her neighbors, when in fact we were there to do what we're supposed to do, and that's keep them and our children safe.
Yes, look at that. That's a great experience, because probably this lady, whoever it was reproducing her fear or her without having this
the background
piece of
knowledge, right. And that's what communication is all about. We have to sit down and talk about our differences, and sometimes those conversations are extremely difficult, you know, and in some cases we have to agree to disagree, but we have a better understanding of each other and our thought processes. So there's nothing to me that kind of breaks down barriers and build trust more so than communication.
That is wonderful. Now, we have, the police department and the human relations department have done trust talks with youth, with a lot of different populations.
Collegiate trust talks
Right.
and clergy
Now,
talks,
yes,
trust talks.
yes, that one too. Now, when it comes to youth, how do you see a project there with the youth of Winston-Salem? We have a youth council. Do you see a project of collaboration there and trust talks potentially in the future?
Yes, and so I believe that, again, that's something we should continue to have, open dialogues with the youth in our community, and also really take the time as citizens, as a law enforcement agency serving this community, to specifically sit down and listen to the concerns of the youth in our community. So to be able to work in concert with them. And one of the things I always like to take the opportunity to do when we are having these types of conversations with the youth is invite them to participate in our Youth Citizens Police Academy. And again, that provides better understanding and better exposure to the different aspects of policing, and get them a good understanding of what we do. And I'm always interested in recruiting good good people who are interested in wearing the badge and the uniform.
Are there other populations that you feel could potentially be a good collaboration in the future? I'm thinking probably children, victims of domestic violence. Have you thought about those avenues?
So we work in partnership with family services in our community to provide various services that's been identified as necessities for our youth, particularly our children of domestic violence. You know, children, again, I believe are definitely a valuable asset to our community and to our future, and we've got to do our best to take care of our children. And again, we work with different organizations in our community to develop programs and maintain contact and services and resources for our children.
That could be a good format. You would have to think probably about the logistics of involving these more vulnerable populations. But thank you. I think that is what we have now for tonight. Thank you very much for your time, Chief Thompson.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for still being with us. And now we'll go to Jamie and the Nexus Challenge.
Thanks, Adolfo. I'm Jamie Waldeck, and this is the Nexus Challenge, where we test your knowledge about fair housing laws. Here's our first question. A female applicant discloses that she was evicted from a previous residence because of domestic disturbances and property damage caused by her ex-boyfriend. She says that she's no longer involved with him, but the landlord is concerned that they may reconcile and cause similar problems. What are the landlord's options? Can he A, reject her application, B, tell her she is on a wait list and that he will get in touch with her, or C, accept the application? The answer is C, accept the application. HUD has said that domestic violence survivors may pursue a federal fair housing claim based on sex if they face housing discrimination because of their history or the acts of their abusers. Since statistics show that women are overwhelmingly the victims of domestic violence, HUD reasoned that discrimination against domestic violence survivors is almost always discrimination against women. Here's our next question. You live in a rental apartment and the landlord refuses to repair unsafe maintenance issues in a timely manner or not at all. What should you do? A, consult an attorney or the City of Winston-Salem Human Relations Department while continuing to pay rent. B, withhold rent until the repairs are made. Or C, withhold rent until you can move out. The answer is A. In North Carolina, even if there are incomplete maintenance requests or discrimination issues, a resident cannot withhold rent, according to the North Carolina Landlord-Tenant Act. It is best to contact Human Relations or consult an attorney if there is an issue instead of withholding rent. And here's our last question. If a rental home is burglarized, who is responsible for investigating the matter? Is it A, the landlord, B, the police, or C, the tenant? The answer is B. Tenants residing in a rental home should contact the police if their home has been burglarized because it is a criminal matter. And that's this month's Nexus Challenge, and I'm Jamie Waldeck. Now let's go back to Wanda.
Thank you, Jamie. Before we go, here's a look at some upcoming events. We hope you enjoyed the program. Thank you for watching Nexus. I'm Wanda Allen Abraha. See you next time.